Thanks, Ron. Perfect. Yeah, so there's a couple things I wanted to chat about today. So both, like, with respect to the email that I sent out on ideas for how we want to sustain SimPEG, and both short-term and long-term. So short-term, I leave in a week and a half, and I'm effectively gone for like 3 months. I'll be back and forth like in between, but I'm not going to be in any sort of position to be leading meetings and like keeping that schedule going. And so I think it's important that we sort of chat about like, what do we want to do about that? So there's a few things. It's like, obviously we want this to be of value and to continue to be of value to people. I mean, I think sort of being in the habit of weekly communication has been a positive thing. Yeah, and so I'd be curious to hear people's thoughts on that. So there's the meetings, there's also the blog. So that's something that like, I basically spend, you know, like 20 to 30 minutes on every week, not too much more. But what I see is the value in that is that I find it motivating to, you know, get something done every week. And I think it's kind of cool to be able to share with the world what we're up to, even if right now it's only us that are reading it. So yeah, go for it. Thanks, Ron. I'll pull that up.
Thank you.
Hey, Craig. Welcome to the conversation. Rowan's got a Google Doc started. He just posted the link in general. So if you're interested in jumping in on that, go for it.
Much copy. Too much. I put them into Don't worry, you.
So I guess like in terms of meetings, the way like I've been trying to sort of help set context, I guess, is chatting with people with the emails that come out, at least having sort of a scope of what we want to accomplish each week. And often that's just been motivated by like what people are up to. There's a few directions that this could go is that, I mean, you know, some of it has been on really the developments in SimPEG and sort of code changes. But, you know, we've had meetings where somebody talks about what they're up to, what they need. And so if you want to like up sort of that and have like each week have somebody different be responsible, like I think that could be a very interesting, viable model. And what would need to be done there is just having somebody who takes point, making sure that like there is somebody on tap next week. Hey, Tibo.
Yeah, that's okay.
And like for filming and things like that, I'm happy to sit down and show somebody how to do it. Dom, I know we've tried your computer and it's been okay. I don't know if the right software is in place to like get the audio right.
Yeah, if I use Chrome, it's much better. I mean, not where I am right now. Internet is very poor, but usually.
Okay, cool. Because I know that Dom knows how to do that. Shoggy is also aware of how to do that.
And Soggy's going to be around when you're gone, Lindsay, is that correct?
Soggy gets back, I believe, actually I can look. I believe he's back at the end of July. So there will be a chunk of time, I think, when he's gone as well. Like a week or two. Trips.
I guess I'm curious, hearing from other people in the room, if it's the value to them to have these meetings, or if we like bump it down to like less than weekly or something like that.
Yeah. What do you guys?
From my perspective, I think they're useful. I mean, I don't always listen in every week, but I think it's a really good way of keeping like momentum going with the project, and keeping it current, and keeping enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm kind of from the end user perspective, so just hearing about what new things are coming up, what developments are, kind of future plans, those sorts of things, rather than like fixing bugs or whatever. So there's probably scope for different themes for different meetings.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, Craig, so in terms of keeping momentum and the conversation going, I guess where do you find the most value in the meetings, and where would you potentially like to see them go?
I guess looking at more future-oriented stuff, like way we can make improvements, like for usability, like the stuff you presented about how you'd set up all that kind of like script generator stuff, mm-hmm. Ideas like that. So I think presenting just like how people have been using the code as well, like examples of what people have been doing with it is good.
Okay. Mike or Steven, are there things you?
I don't know. I guess I don't know. Right now, I think I'm getting into a point where I kind of have tunnel vision, and if it's not directly related to me trying to finish up some of my research, like it's not getting placed very high up the priority list right now for me. So I mean, I definitely think there's value in the meetings.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, I'm people around with that. So I know that I've been working with SimPEG and on SimPEG for a couple of weeks now, and actually, what I see too is that there are a lot of different small parts in SimPEG, and that people are, at least for me, like I'm familiar with some, but not with others. So maybe one thing that would be cool to see sometime in the meeting, if we don't have like major development to present, will be somebody say that, oh, I'm familiar with this topic in SimPEG and I'm gonna present it to the other user. Like for example, for me, one thing that I really don't know how it works in SimPEG right now is all the optimization part. So that would be cool sometime maybe to have this kind of like tutorial on that part of a very specific part of the code or how it works, etc. Because the main point of SimPEG 2 is that it has parts that are shared by a lot of different aspects, but sometimes you just call it and you just don't know what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be a useful kind of thing to have as well, if you like. Just like take some part of the code and kind of go through like, well, how does this actually work, and how can I use it effectively or efficiently?
John, what do you think?
You're on mute, by the way, Dom.
Yeah, sorry guys. I'm not gonna. The connection is too.
Okay, would you be willing to add a couple points to the Google Doc? We can bring in that way. I guess one of the other things that could do too is like if there are specific pieces that people want to work on, like for TiVo's example, in terms of optimization, if like even the meeting was focused around like having somebody actually lead writing some documentation or something like that, or lead creating an example. So there could be sort of like mini hackathons where it's like the meeting this week, 1 hour, we're going to try to pull together an example that talks about optimization. Like
Yeah, that's good.
So that could be an interesting thing. That's a great point, Don. Is often there is a lot of repetition. I've especially noticed that I've been working with comparing some analytics, and we have tons of copies that actually sort of do the same thing in a few different repositories, and that's fine. Like we'll get to a stage where we can synthesize that and like abstract it to a state that everybody's happy. But at least first off, being aware that all those things are there, that the utils are there, that things like directives. Yeah, because in some cases we've got 3 different flavors of something that is effectively the same. So chatting through that and I think those things could be really valuable. Roland, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm super curious of some of the stuff from like end users like Craig and also Dom and people like all of everyone who's using it, and just seeing sort of the diversity of how it's used. That's, I don't know, both motivating and also illustrating sort of how we can pull things together to make it work better. And then yeah, this idea about like actually going through sort of more structured things. Like we've been doing this through the leading edge tutorials, but I think we can do a much lighter version of that, of like some small examples of using some of the classes just to improve our documentation and maybe going through those in a week. I guess that would mean more investment by the people actually running the meeting, which again might mean that it like sort of like goes down to like not necessarily every week, but like sort of higher quality, but also then people on point.
Well, it's your point, Rowan, that if it does sort of up the work a little bit, if that is something that we can rotate, then that also helps. Is that if there's 1 week where you have to put in a little more prep time, that's not the end of the world if somebody else is going to take it next week. And that's also potentially a solution for the blog is, and that could be kind of cool. But it's got to be like something that people are, if you're interested in doing.
Cool. Well, that sounds good. Yeah, I quite like the this week thing. It's really fun just to see people's examples coming in each week, and just also like putting that on a place where other people can see it. I think Lindsay was mentioning that if you are searching for some of these geophysics concepts, the examples from that blog are sort of hitting the top of Google Images, which is also just cool to sort of disseminate our work in sort of a very, I don't know, light fashion.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a really cool way to like, because generating really high quality examples and things like that is a lot of work, but this helps keep us on track and yeah, share that like people are doing cool things. Another thing that I really enjoyed with the blog is actually like each week now just doing a short statement on what the meeting was about. And it's actually really helpful to write that, 6 days later when you realize that I've forgotten a lot of things. And so you go back and sort of recap on what happened. So I found that to be valuable, just keeping up the pulse on where we're at. So.
Does anyone else have any comment on how they found the blog, or if they read it, or if they keep up with any of that stuff?
So can you hear them?
Craig, do you have any thing to say there? You're on mute, but
I haven't actually been looking at the blog, to be honest.
are you in the channel on the SimPEG side?
Is there a blog channel?
It's called
This week.
Oh, this week. Oh, yeah. No, I see that on Slack, yeah.
So those images are, and the quick summaries that people send are used in this blog. So there's a few samples, like this week's, just a quick update on the EM paper and Dom's work on rotated objective functions.
Oh, okay.
A statement about the meeting. So it's pretty lightweight, but yeah, I think it ups the profile, which is cool.
Yeah, is there a problem that there's almost becoming too many, like this, a lot of stuff in like many different places?
Yeah.
There's like the SimPEG website, and that the blog's separate from that.
It is, and right now I don't actually even think that there's a link from the website to the blog.
Right. Yeah. I was just thinking, like, if you go to the website, can you discover all this other stuff easily, or is it slightly obscured?
Ron, don't understand your, can we condense them all in sorry, I don't understand this.
Oh, that was Dom.
Oh.
Yeah. All in a weekly. I don't know.
I agree, Craig. I think, so there's a lot that we have aspired to do with the website. I think perhaps we need to just prioritize what's the bare minimum that needs to be done. And I agree that at least having links to the blog would be good.
Yeah, because I was just thinking there's like, there's the website, then there's stuff like all the, like there's the computation, there's all like the GeoSci stuff as well. And how it all kind of, how it's all related is slightly unclear, if you like.
Yeah, that's very clear.
I mean, they're different things, but they're all kind of related. But
yeah, I agree.
It's just how you go about kind of promoting one over the other, or which way you jump into that, or
yeah, and I wonder if actually sort of having one place where we actually write out what the scope of each of these things is, because they sort of build upon each other, and there certainly are overlaps. And yeah, if the scope is not sort of clear, if you're not deeply involved in it, it's very hard. It would be very hard to tell why they're sort of all distinct things.
yeah. I like Dom's point that he's writing now.
Mhm.
So what do people think they would say in 3 to 5 years' time, what they'll be doing themselves in terms of jobs or whatever, and how that might relate to keeping SimPEG going? You know, is it, do people see that's a feasible thing for themselves, or they think, well, this has been good now, but I can't really see myself being able to keep this up if I have a regular job as well?
Great, do you want to start that off?
Well, I guess I'm coming from the perspective of an end user, so I hope that the code will still be kind of live, if you like. It's not just kind of stagnant and that'll be the end of it. I mean, so having still a community of users, I think, would be very important. So if you guys aren't there, then there's enough kind of crowd and community of knowledgeable users as well to rely on, you know, to discuss with help and things, rather than the actual like developers. I think maybe like the like GMT now, it probably started like pretty small, but now it's ubiquitous. So how do you get it to that stage where the people who are who wrote the code are almost irrelevant, if you like, in terms of its data, in terms of like keeping it going.
That's a good example. Do you know what their sort of current maintenance model looks like? Are there people who work full-time on GMT?
Well, I know, what's his name? Leonard Ueda? Is that his
Oh,
name?
yeah.
Yeah, like he's employed as a postdoc working on GMT, I think.
Mhm.
But it's all kind of run out of the University of Hawaii, or whatever it is, Southwest. So I think because the original developers are at that university, it's been easier to kind of keep it going through the university umbrella. But if everybody left UBC, trying to keep it going and some kind of independent thing as a part-time project could be different or difficult.
Rowan, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm just sort of echoing sort of those points that Craig was saying about like not spending on any single person. Like it needs to actually be used by people, and I think that use will like hopefully push like the ideas into other people's heads. And if people are using it sort of at a day-to-day level, then I would hope that they can, I don't know, contribute back to the code base in some way. And then this other point about like UBC GIF sort of being almost over, meaning that like, I don't know, like the geophysics program even at UBC is in a bit of peril with Doug retiring, Felix leaving, and Eldad being interested in other types of things. Like there's that all of that sort of institutional knowledge is going to graduate and move on and not be sustained at UBC. So yeah,
So
go ahead, Craig.
I was just looking at the GMT website, and I see they have a GMT steering committee, which has got a dozen people from organizations outside of the Hawaii University, like people at Scripps, ConocoPhillips, and something called Mbari. So I guess the idea with that is to have like kind of like the 4 or 5 key people who, no matter where they are around the world, in 5 years' time, are still kind of able to keep a set a direction or have a governance kind of thing, a big picture role. But I don't know what funding models are available to kind of actually get time to working on this sort of thing, or if people go off to consulting work where every hour, every minute needs to be accounted for, then doing kind of pro bono stuff like this becomes difficult. Whereas at a university, it's probably easier to maintain something like that.
Seymour, Mike, are there points you would like to bring up and add to this? What would you like to see happen sort of longer term?
I think it's moving in a really good direction first. The functionality is improving all the time, so the amount you can do with it is just increasing, and I feel like the stability of it's getting better. I mean, sometimes it's always going to be the way. You're going to come up with an application that demands something, and then like the functionality is going to have to kind of keep up with that. You kind of need the problem to motivate the development of the new tools. So, I mean, it's always kind of that back and forth. But And as long as I feel like the academic side of things is a little bit an easier place for the development of that to take place, because I feel like a lot of the deadlines are less harsh and there's a little bit less focus on like a strict timeline under which things need to be produced and delivered. I hope to be able to keep using it. I guess at this point, I think I'd like to try to get a postdoc that works a little bit in archaeological geophysics type applications. It's like a lot of near surface type stuff. Maybe electrical, electromagnetic. Probably even GPR. There's a lot of that. So hopefully find a way to continue using this stuff to branch out to some different applications. Yes, I hope to be in a position where I can continue to use it, hopefully contribute back some useful things. See?
What's our user community looks like right now?
What do you mean?
Like do we have an idea of how many people outside of UBC is using SimPEG?
It's a bit of a tough question to answer, because I mean, people can download it for free. That said, I would guess that most people who are using it are in touch with us, because it's hard to jump in otherwise. Slack is a bit of an indication, so there are, I think, 50 plus people in the SimPEG Slack.
How about the virtual lines?
So I'd say
I have like none of them have joined the meetings recently.
yeah.
So it's just, are most of them kind of in positions and similar to us right now? Are they kind of getting ready to graduate, leave from lines and go on to do different things? Or is there still like the core group of them there who's sticking around?
I think there's a bit of both. Yeah, so I think Andrew will be done fairly soon, and he would be more. Andy, I believe he's still a core member. I don't know that he uses SimPEG on a daily basis, but I know he certainly keeps tabs. And Joe as well. Yeah, so that's something that perhaps, like, I think we need to sort of give some thought to how to sort of manage Slack, a mailing list, these types of things, and how to get a bit of better outside communication in. Because right now, I think the way it's sort of working is there's Slack, and then there are people who email individuals. And that's fine, and that's not a bad model, but you know, you can only sort of personally support so many people. If they're sort of expecting, you know, they fire you a question, they're expecting an answer within a day or two. So that's something that we can give some thought to, I think. I also saw Dom's point, we need to brand ourselves better. Agreed. And I think that reproducible, transparent science is something that would be great to actually speak to a little further. I think that I'm very excited about the EM paper for that, and I want to try and do whatever we can to support that style of publication, where every example that you produce is completely reproducible, tested, part of the documentation. Like, I think that is a really powerful statement in our field. Yeah, Dom, in terms of examples, that's a great point. So one of the things that is been happening this past week So, because I ran into the issue of trying to get the new examples from the EM paper in the docs, and then that put all of our testing times over. And so we've got like a bit of a temporary solution in place where we actually store them on the cloud and then download and build the docs from there. So we're reinventing read the docs, except the worst version. But what we can perhaps do is even maybe pull apart the examples into a different repository. I think that that might enable people to more rapidly contribute to them. And as well as the style of computation, if we can put some effort into streamlining that a little bit, computation.GeoSci, that would enable people to contribute notebooks as well.
I think you started to speak to this a little bit, Lindsay, but in all the stuff that you guys are doing with Doug right now for his lecture tour, like that's, I mean, I don't think there's anything else that is going to increase the visibility of SimPEG right now more than that. Yeah, because that is just that SimPEG is just inherently tied to so many of the examples and applications and little widgets people can play with. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think people are going to get. I mean, it's at least going to get brought to their attention, and I think a fair bit of them are just going to be kind of, it's going to grab them. They're going to say like, wow, like I can use this to do all of these very practical things. Mm-hmm. Like I can sit there and I can investigate the problem completely and play with all these different variables and just get a feel for how this stuff works. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to help reduce this kind of visibility of something more than anything else right now. Mm-hmm. But then, like you said, with the blog and these other things, maybe once we get their attention, maybe we can kind of keep it, maybe bring it into it if there's actually, we can keep some of this other stuff up. Mm-hmm.
I think, to my point with the blog, it's an opportunity for elevating SimPEG. I also hope that we can turn it into an opportunity to elevate each person's work as well. Is like it's a chance to show that people are doing new things and innovative things every week, and like you're also contributing to this project that's larger than yourself. And so I would love to see it evolve to be something that we can all be like pretty proud to be a part of. So.
Just one thing I've thought on, a point that Dom is writing at the moment about organic growth. I think SimPEG has grown very organically, it seems. Like there's lots of people contributing lots of different things. And it's kind of, there's not, well, from my perspective at least, there doesn't seem to be an overall direction. Like, say if I look at another package, like, I don't know, Pandas or something, you know, they put out a release every 6 months. And there's also a list of kind of like, these are the things we're going to be working on in the next 6 months. Mm-hmm. So that you can kind of see as a user, like, well, you know, it'd be great if we had functionality. Oh, I can see they're going to be working on that in the next time period. And maybe that focuses the development effort towards kind of fewer things, but more robust, or I'm not quite sure what the correct word is, but you know what I mean. Like rather than everybody contributing hundreds of little things, let's work on 6 big things. Just to kind of help streamline some of the kind of development in the future, perhaps, and so that people can kind of see this is where this is going to be heading, rather than just like kind of a very organic growth, which kind of moves around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point.
I think that also comes back to business continuity, define the scope, and just scope.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's worked really well at the moment because loads of people can contribute loads of different things, and it's built this huge code base very quickly. But that perhaps makes it even more complex to kind of discover and get into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's certainly something that analytics and utils are. One example of that is there are a ton of useful things there that are not necessarily discoverable, and so people are reinventing wheels.
Right.
And so that then needs, completely agree, some direction and refactoring.
Yep. So yeah, so this is about, like Rowan's or Dom's point, that it's just been developed for your PhDs. That's totally great. But to move it forward, I think it needs to have a little bit more of a kind of a structure to it. And you know, we're going to work on this and then this and this.
Yeah, agreed. So a more sort of professional development style. Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
I think for that more professional development style to really work, you kind of have to have somebody who that's just kind of like what's their primary task is just like doing that. I think for most users, it's just going to be. I mean, I think the reason we've been able to develop things in so many different areas and get to where we are now is that each person kind of had their own little piece they were working on, and the reason they were motivated to work on that was because it allowed them to do their own research and to solve their own problems. So I think it's harder for, if that's not your primary job, then pushing this package forward, I think it's harder to get behind some more well-defined. I think it's just easier. We can have a well-defined scope, but have kind of lots of different tracks that are kind of still going on, still being built simultaneously that help contribute to the overall feeling.
No, I completely agree.
It's hard. Rowan,
Yep.
how do you see SimPEG fitting into 3-point?
Well, right now it's pretty hard to get it sort of on our roadmap. I think there's a possibility, so similar to sort of how Mira's gone about it, with some integrations of using it like in a consulting capacity. Yeah, right now we don't have it sort of on our roadmap. I've been trying to integrate it somewhat through the use of like the property stuff, which Franklin has been working on. So I don't have a great answer for that at the moment. Yeah. Doesn't believe that. Yeah, well, I mean, there is definitely the potential for some of this in the future to be like cloud ready, but that's a long way off, and it's not in, like, I don't have the resource right now to sort of commit full-time people to that. And so, like, the SimPEG stuff needs to be more mature on its own before I would say companies can jump into it. if that makes sense. Like it's too, like all of the things that we've been talking about above it's sort of too young and too scattered to jump in fully. I think in some of the areas like 1D EM or some of the graph mag stuff, there's potential to actually start pushing that. But I think that will be a gradual process about how to bring more professionalism into it.
Well, I think that will just naturally come as it matures.
Yeah, I hope so. And then some of the other pieces that were talked about before about the scope, I think what I think is special and unique about SimPEG is that all of these methods are in one place, and that it has the breadth that a lot of other packages don't have. And so it's more about like when we have that breadth, how do we then take sort of pieces of that out, and discretize is the first piece of that. Is like that's the most mature, like the finite volume meshing that supports inverse problems is mature, and so that's been taken out. And I think we're in the stage now where we're starting to take out sort of more of the analytics, which have been scattered not just across SimPEG, across the GeoSci realm. And how do we take those pieces out as well, and sort of formalize how that works? So hopefully that will continue, like with the optimization code even that Thibaut was talking about earlier.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that I see as a really big challenge right now are the things that are not feature additions, but are refactoring. And like refactoring that we know needs to be done. It's not going to give you a PhD. It's not necessarily going to get funded. Those are the things that I think are really challenging, is because that's what gets us to, the next professional state. But in the same breath, we realize that, no company is going to want to actually take on the code base until it is at that state that they can go ahead and trust it. And through organic growth, we can get a ways there. But yeah, this is a challenging point, and I think is perhaps one of the biggest bottlenecks to further growth. Is because we can go out and we can raise a community, and I agree with Tom's point that at some point we can go knocking on doors. But right now, things like the optimization code, there are aspects of that we want to go in and rewrite. Because we can speed things up, we can improve things, make it more clear. How do we go about doing that? Yeah, Tom, I think that's a good point, is that the BCGS are going for a geoscience VC type project. Could be an interesting example on how to do that. Is that, if the output is supposed to be a professional product, then we need to have some professional code to do that. And so this could be an interesting use case to figure some of these things out.
Yeah, I think that would be like a really interesting case study to start with, is like how do we actually support the, not just from the exposure of it, but like supporting users or geoscience professionals rather than geophysicists with coding experience, which is sort of where we are right now.
So things like the optimization packages, it would be, there's a lot of interesting problems there for people to work on who aren't necessarily geophysicists. Like you could get some applied mathematicians, or I mean, like Michael Friedlander or like Michael Wathen, who's doing his PhD that most of us know. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things that they could contribute in a lot of aspects of this project that they could work on as well. It would be interesting to get, just kind of bring in some perspectives. Just from like somebody with a very technical computer science background is gonna have some different ideas maybe on how to approach things. Us too. It'd be interesting if we could pull. I don't know how to go about making an effort to try to pull more of those people in, and get more of them excited about it. But it'd be nice if we could.
Yeah, I think a big part of it, and something that keeps on coming up, is this idea of like scoping out exactly what we're trying to do and making them sort of into digestible pieces. So I mean, let's come up with like, let's split up the examples so that we can work on those individually. Let's split up, like discretize and GeoAnna and potentially even these smaller pieces. I think also another place where that could help is going to other package developers out there. Like there's the PyGimli people, there's Vadiendo as well, that have similar goals, and also similar problems of scaling and potentially working on some of these pieces together with them, especially if they're well scoped, and like taking an approach similar to the astro science or astrophysics community. If you look at AstroPy, on the front page of their Python website, it's like, this is the central package for astrophysics in Python. Like it's like the one and only. Whereas right now in geophysics, there's a bunch of scattered geophysics packages that do small pieces of the entire ecosystem. And I think we're like well positioned to do quite a few of those things, but again, we're also young in terms of our like package organization and rigor that we do to development.
Thanks, Craig. Yeah, I think that's a great point, Rowan. Really, we're certainly not the only ones who've encountered a scaling problem. I think actually talking to OpsPy would be a really interesting group to connect with, is because they're supporting hundreds, if not thousands, of users on the seismic side of things.
Yeah. So just comparing in that link I put, it says GMT is used by 25,000 individual users. The website has 20,000 users per month, 2,000 downloads per month. There's 11,000 Google Scholar citations for GMT, etc., etc. It's heavily used by research, government labs, USGS, NOAA, NASA, as well as it provides a foundation for higher level tools such as GMT SAR, which is an INSAR processor. So yeah, I think you want to get it to the point where when people think, oh, I need to model my gravity data, they automatically think SimPEG. Like OpsPy, you know, like I'm a research seismologist, OpsPy is my tool, or SAC used to be, I guess.
I think it's also important when we're looking at the GMT comparison to appreciate, like any of us who have used GMT know that like the learning curve for getting into it and actually using it to do what you want it to do is incredibly high. Like, I mean, the syntax for it is not straightforward at all. and building some of those batch files to run and produce things, and just giving them all the things that change and break from version to version. Like, it's not necessarily an easy thing to get into, but it's powerful enough, and the utility of it is great enough that people are willing to like go through the effort of learning it and just like adding to their toolbox of things that they can do. So I think that speaks well for us, because with SimPEG, I feel like maybe just we're so used to it at this point already as well, but I feel like it is easier to get into SimPEG and slightly more user-friendly from nicer foundation built it on in some ways. I don't see why it couldn't become a package that is used as broadly as something, maybe not as broadly as GMT, because GMT can be used by people in very, very different fields. But I mean, it's just social SimPEG. I mean, solving any sort of discretized system of equations, there's no reason it has to be geophysics.
Yeah, no worries, Dom. I think I also need to run here shortly.
Yeah, this is great. I think a lot of has come out of this, and a lot of it that is actionable now by us in terms of restructuring some of our messaging, getting some, like working on some of this like roadmap stuff, and even getting a game plan together for how we want to move forward, and how we want to sort of attack these things, and reaching out to other people. Yeah, and this is the start of a larger conversation, I think.
Absolutely. I think, see it all. Let's maybe sort of just think through these notes, because I think we've got a lot of things down, a lot of things that are potentially actionable. But we do need to figure out where we want to fit and where each of us wants to jump in and perhaps take on a bit of a leadership role and take responsibility for some of these pieces. Yeah, so let's think on it and maybe regroup next week.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
Cool, well, thanks everyone. I'm very excited about where we're headed. There's some good things on the go and some good people in the group, so. Cool.
That's good.
All right, thanks for joining.
Cool. Thanks all. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, see you guys.
Bye-bye.
Run UTMB.